5 World Hot News You Should Know from May 4 to 6 of 2021. Welcome to Viet US 1040 channel, the world's hot news. Today we would like to share 5 world hot news that you should know from May 4 to 6 of 2021 as follows. Newsletter 1. Surprised by the news that the Japanese town was controversial for using COVID-19's relief money to make a statue. Newsletter 2. Australia plans to withdraw imprisonment of people entering from India. Newsletter 3. Hot news: Skyline collapse in Mexico. At least 13 people died. Newsletter 4. Heartbroken with the news that an Indian girl jumped into the funeral pyre of her father who had just passed away because of COVID-19. Newsletter 5. China has stopped indefinitely economic dialogue with Australia. The following are details of the newsletter. Newsletter 1. Surprised by the news that the Japanese town was controversial for using COVID-19's relief money to make a statue. The latest news says that Noto Town in Ishikawa Prefecture, western central Japan, has built a giant squid statue, a specialty of this land, located in the port. Worth mentioning, the cost to make a 13-meter sea creature statue is 25 million yen, $228,000, taken from the town's anti-pandemic emergency fund. The news was immediately controversial after the town used a portion of the money from the COVID-19 emergency fund to make a giant squid statue, which, according to many, was unreasonable and unpopular. However, Noto officials told local media that this is part of a long-term plan to attract tourists back to town following the epidemic. It should be known that Japan is struggling against the new wave of COVID-19 infections, with a number of cases skyrocketing. Although the number of infections is currently low, the town of Noto is also affected by the sharp decline in tourists in recent months. The issue was controversial because Noto received 800 million yen, $7.3 million, in government subsidies as an emergency economic rescue for the affected areas. Although this budget is not necessarily directly spent on disease relief operations, some criticize the town government for spending too much money on the giant squid statue, especially when the epidemic is not over yet. It is said that the statue can help tourism in the long term, but the money to make it can be used to provide emergency assistance to medical staff or hospitals is the right thing to do. Overall, according to many experts, the COVID-19 epidemic has caused heavy losses to the Japanese tourism industry. The country will host the Olympic Games this year but will not allow international fans to watch and cheer the matches. These four figures show that this could cost the country the sunrise up to 200 billion yen, $1.8 billion, according to estimates by Takahide Kaiuchi, a leading economist at the Nomura Research Institute. Newsletter 2. Australia plans to withdraw imprisonment of people entering from India. Hot News said last week Australia banned entry of all people from India, including citizens, until May 15, due to concerns about an increase in COVID-19 cases in the South Asian country. Canberra also warns those who violate will face a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison and a fine of up to 66,000 AUD, equivalent to 51,122 USD. However, Prime Minister Morrison recently said it is very unlikely that people entering from India will face the above penalties. I don't think it would be fair if the proposed penalties are in the most extreme form and can be applied anywhere, but here's a way to make sure we can stop the coronavirus from spinning back, Mr. Morrison told a local television station May 4. There are now reports that Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison is considering withdrawing prison sentences for people entering from India after receiving much criticism from public opinion. The Australian government's temporary travel restraints are being strongly opposed by lawmakers, foreign tourists and the Indian community in the country. Currently about 9,000 Australian citizens are believed to be stranded in India. According to the latest news, according to the head of the Australian government, the laws will be applied responsibly and appropriately, but must also ensure less pressure on the country's quarantine system. Mr. Morrison also said that Canberra will continuously review the ban on entry from India and hopes to resume flights between the two countries after May 15 if medical conditions permit. There is now news that repatriation flights from India can still be conducted as planned on May 15, as the government intends to double the capacity of some quarantine facilities in the lateral regions north. Newsletter 3. Hot news: Skyline collapse in Mexico. At least 13 people died. General News says at least 50 people were injured in the crash on the 12 overhead railway near the Tuzonco and Olivos stations in Mexico City, Mexico, around 11 p.m. on May 3. Local. But citing information from emergency rescue units at the scene, it was later reported that 6 people died and 80 were injured in the crash. But by midnight on May 3, local time, Mexico City's emergency rescuers said the number of deaths had reached 13 people. The general perception is that the overhead railway collapsed when a vehicle hit one of the rail supports under the roadbed. The train was broken and sometimes plunged straight down the road below. The accident caused a stir among public opinion and Mexican people. The safety of this elevated railway is being questioned. Newsletter 4. Heartbroken with the news that an Indian girl jumped into the funeral pyre of her father who had just passed away because of COVID-19. The trauma of COVID-19 is not over in the world yet. A tragic incident happened in the state of Rajasthan, India, when a 34-year-old woman burned 70% of her body from jumping into the crematorium of her recently deceased father. News shocked the world. According to local police, Mr. Damodar Sharda, 73 years old, the woman's father passed away on May 4 at the hospital due to COVID-19. While Mr. Sharda was cremated, his youngest daughter, Chandra Sharda, suddenly jumped into the funeral pyre. Even though everyone pulled it out, she still suffered 70% burns. How heartbreaking this tragedy. The woman was immediately taken to a nearby hospital and then transferred to Jodhpur for treatment, according to the General News. Local people revealed that Mr. Damodar Sharda has 3 daughters. His wife passed away not long ago. The one jumping into the funeral pyre is the youngest daughter. Police added that this youngest daughter had demanded to go to the cremation site to perform the final rituals. The fact that India accounts for nearly half of the global COVID-19 cases and the catastrophe of the epidemic crisis of this century has shocked and very worried countries around the world. Newsletter 5. China has stopped indefinitely economic dialogue with Australia. The hot news said that the National Development and Reform Commission, NDRC, of the State Council of China on May 6 announced that it would indefinitely cease activities related to the Central Australia Strategic Economic Dialogue. It should be added that the relationship between China and Australia has deteriorated dramatically since 2020 after Australia called for an investigation of COVID-19 origin, prompting Beijing to respond with commercial measures. Moreover, some Australian government officials recently launched a series of measures aimed at severing normal exchanges and cooperation between China and Australia with Cold War thinking and ideological discrimination. In April, Australia cancelled 2 Victoria's agreemelt with China's Belt and Road Project, prompting Beijing to warn bilateral relations would worsen. Australia is now believed to be re-examining a deal for a Chinese company to lease a Darwin port for 99 years. The fact that China has stopped indefinitely all activities related to the strategic economic dialogue with Australia in the context of the escalating tensions between the two countries is drawing much attention to the world. This video here is the end. Thank you for your follow-up attention. If you find that the channel's video is useful, please take a moment to subscribe, like, and support the channel. Thank you very much and see you again in the next channel video.